he'll say the maddest thing he can, and then his staff will spend the time going, actually, what the Donald meant was this.
Do you know what I thought you were going to say there? What the Donald is this? That felt like a...
It should be. That should be every day on the headlines. What the Donald has he done this time?
Let's get into it. I want to welcome into the studio for the first ever 5 Stories with a Funny Friend, Ian Stone. Welcome to the show.
Jeffrey, nice to see you. Can I call you Jeffrey? Because it's Times Radio, and I sort of feel like Jeff Norcott is the bloke who's come to fix your fridge.
It's true, actually.
Jeffrey Norcott is the Times Radio presenter. Is that all right?
Jeffrey's a butler's name, isn't it?
Well, is it?
Jeffrey and Ian.
I've never had one.
All of a sudden, we sound a lot older, Jeffrey and Ian.
I sound exactly how old I actually am.
You are. I mean, like, as a stand-up, the reason I've put this slot here is I know that stand-ups, this is sort of like a lost half hour, isn't it? Usually, you'd be waiting to do a gig. You'd be just sitting crying in a Premier Inn or a Travelodge. So I thought, why not have comedians in to discuss the news? Because that's what I'd be doing.
I could cry here, couldn't I?
We're that age, aren't we? We are that age. But you're a funny friend and you're an actual friend. So this is like a sort of working class chumocracy. So let's get into the stories. And look, I mean, Donald Trump this week is a one-man news machine. So let's dial back a bit because we do sort of review the whole week in this section. Let's dial back a bit to the early bit in the week when he slapped tariffs on. However briefly, he slapped them on Canada, Mexico and China. It's very difficult not to say China the way that he says China. Have you noticed that?
Which is what?
China.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, that's an incredible achievement just to have changed the way we pronounce a word. But were you shocked that he slapped on tariffs, given it's his favourite word in the English language?
Was I shocked? I'm not. I mean, it's difficult to be shocked by anything he does. He's hit the ground running, hasn't he? I think one can say that. I mean, he's sort of like a 4-year-old who's been put in charge of a nuclear submarine, isn't he? And it's a worry. Anything could happen.
And it really is a nuclear submarine as well.
And it actually contains nuclear submarines.
Yeah.
I mean, there was actually a bit of stand-up by a guy called John Mulaney. There's a horse in a hospital, which I would recommend anybody watches, which essentially says the same thing. But in the end, Donald Trump is in charge, and I think you could do a Donald Trump bit every week, to be honest with you, because strange things are going to happen.
I think we're all going to... It's been kind of exhausting, isn't it? And the fact that he's gone at, like, Mexico and Canada, do you think that maybe somebody mislabelled the file's enemy and allies folder, and then he's going to sign a major deal with North Korea? Maybe that's the next move.
Well, he was chummy, wasn't he, with Kim Jong-un? The thing about the tariffs is, do you think he has any understanding of the idea of tariffs?
I know that I don't.
No, I mean, you know, he's up at 4 o'clock in the morning tweeting, right? Do you think he's up because he's been reading about distributive bargaining as opposed to integrative bargaining? Do you think? Do you know what that is, by the way?
It's interesting. Of course I don't.
I've been reading about it. I've been reading it. Donald Trump always works in a distributive bargaining way, essentially like a zero-sum game. You're selling something, I'm buying it. I want you to sell it for less than you want to sell it for. If you do, I win. That's the way Donald works. Integrative bargaining is how the rest of the world works, and it doesn't work. Because if essentially... if you're providing a service for me and I go and I don't pay you for that service, you're not going to provide another service for me, and I would go elsewhere. The only problem is there's only one Mexico.
There is only one Mexico.
Only one Mexico. So if he messes them about, no more tacos. And I'm not saying that's the only thing they produce.
But it's a very good thing that they produce.
It is, and he won't get them now. And people will be upset because I think they like them.
He quite quickly rode it back, didn't he, after phone calls and a potential stock market crash. They stayed in on China, though, and China did their own targeted tariffs in response, which we don't fully understand. But I suppose what they've given themselves is a bit of wiggle room. It sort of suggests that we think this isn't the end of it, whereas Trump's gone all in straight away, 10%.
Yeah, but it's always with him. He'll say the maddest thing he can, and then his staff will spend the time going, actually, what the Donald meant was this.
Do you know what I thought you were going to say there? What the Donald is this? That felt like a...
It should be. That should be every day on the headlines. What the Donald has he done this time? Yeah, he doesn't want to upset the Chinese. The Chinese have said they're not going to buy their soybeans from America. They're buying them from Russia instead. So he's basically strengthened Vladimir Putin straight away.
That is
Good
the problem.
Start, Donald.
Yeah, it's not a zero-sum game. You mentioned mad plans. Then we're on to the Gaza plan, which I think took everybody by surprise. It's the first time I think I've seen journalists in a press briefing just pass out, like literally pass out, gasp. Even his own aides, I think there were people scowling at him from the back of the room. But essentially, he was saying that he was going to take a long-term ownership position of Gaza and turn it into the Riviera of the Middle East. I mean, I've got to say, of all the outcomes in that long-running conflict, very few people would have had on their bingo card that the guy from Home Alone 2 owns it. I don't think anybody had that in the sweepstake.
There's a lot of things that had to happen to get to this point. I mean, I'll tell you who did enjoy that moment was Benjamin Netanyahu, who was standing there grinning from ear to ear. I mean, look, I think the fact that the President of the United States can say that he wants Gaza as a suburb of the United States and Palestinians can go and live elsewhere, it's an unusual diplomatic route.
Unusual
that he's taking. But they did say that he was thinking outside the box. I think there's a third option to this, right? Because there's three possibilities: thinking outside the box, thinking inside the box, or not thinking. I think he took
Why
the
does
third
there have to be a box? Let's think like Elon Musk. Why should there be a box, man? Boxes are expensive. Who's paying for this box?
Well, I mean, look, right now the ceasefire is holding, but the truth is, if Hamas say, "Oh, we're going to be shifted out," well, they've got nothing to lose at that point.
Yeah, you would say that sort of goes fairly squarely against a lot of what they stand for.
And they're quite a free-spirited bunch, aren't they, to be fair? So, and I'm not trying to belittle the horrible things they've done, but you understand the point I'm making.
Absolutely, yes. We mentioned Elon Musk in passing there. So we've got DOGE, the Department of Government Efficiency.
It is the Department of Government Efficiency. It used to be run by him and Vivek Ramaswamy, and then he basically binned him off. So he's already made a 50% saving there. That is a good start.
Yes, that's
with the
very
efficiency,
yeah.
right? And
Here's one more unemployed person. If you're looking at the potential pitfalls in the Musk strategy, is that if you lay off a lot of people, brilliant, we're spending less, but there are also a lot of unemployed people who aren't spending either.
They have to do something. I'm not sure. I mean, I think that's the truth is, I'm not sure they've really thought it all through. Really.
A lot of it happens at 4 a.m. UK time.
And there's never anything good happened at 4 a.m. UK time, except for the odd boxing match we were watching from the United States. But they're sending like teenage boys to go and sort this stuff out. I'm not.
Yeah, some of Musk's employees are at the younger end of the tech bros spectrum, and not recently out of school. I mean, yeah, it does feel a bit sort of unelected. If you look at Doge though versus austerity, tomato. They get Doge, which is this big, cool, swinging cuts to the size of the state, and we had this slightly uptight version, which was austerity. It's good for the soul. It's cleansing for the soul. It's sort of, in a nutshell, brings to mind that idea of two countries divided by a common language.
Yes, but it presses the same buttons, doesn't it?
Yes.
Really, we don't have a federal government. Oh, where's my healthcare, and how comes the roads are falling apart, and how comes the aeroplanes? There's been a few issues since he started having a go at air traffic control. So I'm not sure. The thing I would think about it really more than anything is that, like I say, there was a 19-year-old kid who was sent to one of the main federal agencies. I'm not so sure 19-year-olds should be in charge of anything. That's my general feeling. When I was 19, I accepted a lift on the bonnet of my mate's car. And let me tell you, speed is a very different thing depending on whether you're in a car or on a car, is what I found out. And we went about 50 miles an hour and I rolled off and I almost died. That's what 19-year-olds do. I'm not sure they should be in charge of government departments.
Yeah, I don't want to be sexist, but 19, there's a reason that their car insurance premiums are high.